We have a lot of approvals and big items, so I'm gonna do my job of keeping the meeting running. Just a reminder, this is a live stream recording. It is open to the public. Please don't use the chat because of the public meetings. Us being able to really track all of that will not work in these meetings when we try to do them virtual. And I think we have the public comment period during here, so anything that's not covered, hopefully we can identify who. We already have a list of folks that want to speak during the public comment period, and make sure we have that time at that point in time. But I think at this point, I am going to ask Andrew to do the full roll call for the record so that we get all of that recorded, and then we'll move into review of the agenda and dive right in. So Andrew, are you doing the roll call today then?
Actually, I am. So I'll just jump right in.
Okay, you're doing.
All right, I will begin. Secretary Rebecca Flora.
Yes.
Melissa Archer.
Here.
Julie Shablitsky. Luis Cardona. Hillary Bell.
Here.
Jeffrey Newman.
Here.
Elizabeth Hughes.
Here.
Roland Agbade. Peter Ramsey. Pete Lesher.
I'm present.
Nathan Brown. I saw Nathan come in and then leave, so maybe I'll circle back to him. Sandy Turner.
Here.
Nicholas Redding.
Here.
Chief Donna Abbott. Jonathan Hughes. Tara Clifford. Lawana Holland Moore.
Here.
And Dennis Doster.
Here.
Thank you.
And we have quorum. We have 10 in attendance, and I think Nathan is going to join us, so we might even have a few more join, but we're good to proceed.
Okay, great. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you all being here, and some of you calling in from various places, so appreciate that. Just a reminder again, we are recording the meeting today, live stream, and so, yeah. Okay, let me get started. Let's review the agenda. It's really full. We have several approvals that we need to go through. We have our report that I'll provide, our management report from Ariane. We report them from the American Heritage Area Coalition's report, public comment following that. And then we have several action items that are perhaps a little complicated. So I hope you all took time to read your packets and make sure that everyone's coming in with all of that background. Thank you to staff for providing to us, because there is a lot of information, and hopefully everyone's had a chance to review all of that. And then we have a particular discussion item around CAPS, and then any new announcements. And then I'm, as always, trying to reserve the last 15 minutes for our Heritage Area Director highlights, where we get to have a little deeper dive into a couple of our heritage areas. So with that, now you will know why I'm going to try to keep things moving, as we have a lot to cover. So once again, thank you all. So the first item is our approval of our minutes, both from the April 10th meeting and then from our special meeting that was held on May 15th. And so what I'd like to do is do this as two separate resolutions. So is there a motion to approve, motion basically for resolution R100, approve the minutes from the April 10th, 2025 meeting? Would anyone like to make that motion?
I'll second, Sandy.
Second by Sandy. Any comments, questions? Before we call for the vote? And help me out if I don't see a hand up. Hopefully the staff will warn me if I'm missing somebody. With that, anyone that might need to abstain from this vote, please let us know. Okay, anyone opposed? And therefore, put your thumbs up, hands up, however you may. I'm going to assume that everyone else that's voting member is approving the from April 10th, 2025. Thank you all. I always like just go in that reverse order. That way we record anybody who's not in favor first. So we'll do the same thing. Motion passed. We'll do the same thing with R200, which is approval of the minutes from the May 15th special meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I
Move
move.
approval.
Okay, we've got Jeff, seconded by, who was it?
Sandy.
Sandy. Thank you, Sandy. Anyone abstaining? Anyone opposed? Thumbs up for all in support. Motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for moving through that, and many thanks to the staff for continuing to do a great job preparing those. So the next item is my report. We're going to start with the emergency grant request that we did receive from the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum, and I want to point out that these emergency requests, because they're an emergency, presumably, we do, as per our guidelines, bylaws, do make those approvals through our executive committee. And I can attest, and then others that are on certainly can add to it, that, you know, we do go through a pretty good vetting of these and questioning and ensuring that they are, as they come in, really meeting the intent of what the emergency grants are about. And so we did basically approve this particular request that did come in from the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum. You see the summary there in your packet and on the slide here. And yeah, very excited that we were able to help that one out. Before I move on from this one, any questions or comments on that? Okay, great. Thank you. I was glad that we were able to take care of that. I will mention that there was one other one that came in that we did not approve, mostly because it did not really meet the intent of emergency grants, but it may have some bearing on another part of our agenda further on regarding the continued unknown territory of federal funding and the impacts that's having across the state in many ways, not the least of which are our heritage areas. And so the other request that did come in was for 1 to 3 temporary staff personnel. It was forwarded to us by Liz Chateau from the Monocacy National Battlefield to cover costs of 1 to 3 temporary personnel whose federal funding had been cut. I wanted to share that information. We did not feel at the executive committee that it meant the intent, but it did raise this really important issue, is that we could be entering another season that, you know, won't have the type of impact as COVID perhaps, but there will be impact. And I think how we handle that and potentially our approach to the reserve fund and other things is something that we may want to consider proactively. And so when this one came through, it did remind us that there might be more situations like this that we might want to think about how we handle. So I wanted to at least share that information with everyone, even though that one was not improved because it didn't meet the intent of the current emergency fund. So the other update that I have is just officially letting you all know that the strategic plan that we did approve at the May 15th meeting, the special meeting, has been publicly published as of June 23rd, and it's basically actively begins as of July 1, the beginning of this fiscal year 26, which starts July 1, and it was written with the intent of being through fiscal year 32. Now, that doesn't mean we put it on a shelf and forget about it. That just means that we're trying to at least be forward thinking in terms of setting what we should be doing at this board level. You know, the vision, the goals, where we really want to be, the direction, the strategic direction of the authority. It is intended that we certainly will revisit and, you know, assess every few years to ensure that there hasn't been some major market disruptor or other new things that we should take into consideration. But the idea is that the strategic plan is sort of a forward multi-year thinking strategy guidance document. That strategy document then basically sets us up to be able to then task to the staff the methods, the activities, how we're going to actually meet some of those goals in that vision, that direction. So with that, I am going to end my chair report and turn it over to Ariane for the staff report, which actually will begin with the implementation plan of their work to now determine how to best basically structure activities and programming to fulfill the vision that has been set in the strategic direction that's been set in the strategic plan. So Ariane, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Secretary Flora. So yes, as Secretary Flora was just mentioning, the implementation plan is going to articulate the actions that we're going to use to fulfill the strategies that were approved in the strategic plan. That will include specific tactics, responsibilities, timelines, resources needed, and it's really going to serve as the roadmap to guide our day-to-day activities, how we're going to track progress, and really ensure accountability through progress indicators and performance measures, which will be included in the implementation plan. So working off of the feedback that was captured during the strategic planning process, we, the program staff, are continuing to work with Due East, and we have completed a first draft of the implementation plan. We have another meeting with them next week where we're going to be doing some additional refinements. And then we're going to send the final draft of the implementation plan to the executive committee for review. And the goal is for us to be presenting the plan to the authority at the October meeting. And as Secretary Flora said, it will be used to just ensure that our strategic plan is fulfilling all of the priorities and the results that were outlined in the plan that we want to accomplish.
Nicholas.
There I am. I was just curious. I know you said you're working with Due East. Did you guys have to procure that, or how did, like, separate procurement, or was that is it expansion?
Yeah, so we did an add-on to their contract for the implementation plan.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would just add, because I don't know if everyone was thinking, I'm thinking October seems so far away, but my goodness, we're already middle of July and it's actually just a couple months away. So I feel like that's a good timing for the board to, you know, receive a presentation from the staff about the implementation and how we're going to go about fulfilling the strategic direction. And it's hard to believe that October is just really 3 months away, really. So, so any other questions for Ariane on the next steps as it relates to the implementation plan? Okay, then we'll just keep rolling with Ariane's report. Go ahead.
Great. Financing fund report is next. You saw that the summary of the status of the financing fund was included in your briefing materials. That was sent on June 24th, which showed the reserve fund balance at $186,505.30. MDP and MHT are still working on closing out fiscal year 25, so we don't have a final number on where we have ended at this exact time. That reconciliation is still happening, which includes MHAA's financing fund. But one thing to note is that there was and is still $75,000 of unspent emergency grant funds from fiscal year 25 that will roll over to fiscal year 26. So that we know will be added to that reserve fund balance, and in addition to any other reconciliations that happen. So I just wanted to make you all aware of that. At the next meeting, we can report final fiscal year 25 numbers to you once the closeout has happened. Any questions on that before I have one additional note related to MHAA funds. Okay. Not seeing any. The additional note that I wanted to share with you is related to fiscal year 26. You all might remember this came up in some conversation at previous authority meetings, but per the Budget and Reconciliation and Financing Act of 2025, there was $340,000 of MHAA money that was set aside from the $6 million appropriation for the purchase of a new software grant system. Our current contract is going to be expiring in the coming year, and this is money that was set aside to help pay for that. So that means that there was $340,000 less to go towards funding grants this year because that money was sectioned out from our appropriation. So just wanted to make everybody aware of that, and it could inform some decisions you're making later in the meeting. Any questions? Okay, with that, I'm going to turn things over to Martha, who's going to give us an update on fiscal year 25 reserve grants and also our October meeting.
Thank you. So just a quick update to let you all know about an FY25 grant that was awarded off the reserve list. Unfortunately, one of our FY25 grantees, the town of Sharpsburg, decided to decline their award. And so therefore, as per our policy, we went to the next eligible project on the reserve list, and we were able to award a grant to Historic Annapolis in the amount of $18,750 for a non-capital project that, again, was on the reserve list based on our decision-making process last grant round. So FYI to you all, that happened 2 months ago, just for the record. And then, as Ariane mentioned, we wanted to leave a little bit of space to just remind you all that our next meeting is going to be in person in the Passages of Western Potomac Heritage Area up in Cumberland. We would love for you all to be there and are hoping that you will RSVP to the Google invite so we can get an accurate number for a train ride that Dee Dee Ritchie and Kim Folk staff up at the Heritage Area are putting together for us. It's going to be a really wonderful day. And also wanted to let you know that authority members are eligible for a one-night hotel stay, and program staff will send more information about that after this meeting. But wanted to get this all on your radar. Like Secretary Flora said, October is around the corner. Thank you.
Thanks, Martha. Any questions for Martha? Okay, well, I'm excited about being in Mountain Maryland. I'm actually going to be there 2 weeks before that date for the big Appalachia Regional Mission Conference. So Dee Dee and Kim are going to be busy during October, and get a room for the month. But anyways, looking forward to that in person. I know, schedules change, but hopefully everyone can make a big effort that we can all have that time together, which is always very special every year. And so with no questions coming up, I am going to move to our coalition report. And so I want to turn to Lucille and Bridget to join us for the report of what's happening in the coalition. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary. I'm actually driving, actually on the Eastern Shore. So I'm sorry I'm off camera. I hope everyone's been surviving whatever storms have been hitting them. So Bridget and I will both be addressing this. So just quickly, directors are part of the heritage areas, are part of numerous outreach efforts and programs, as we always are, including MML, which was a great success, and also the upcoming MACO conferences. So I hope at MACO, if anyone's there, that you'll come by our booth. We would love to see you, love to chat with you all. We do have some concerns. We are concerned that the heritage area directors in general, there are highlights, and we have this coalition report, but have been relegated to being the public and must sign up for comment. We find this is an unnecessary barrier to communication within this meeting. Directors should have been an active part of this meeting, and we should be available for any questions and comments throughout the meeting. And we would like to have that discussed at some point. And as the public comments are before actions, we do have questions on what we are commenting on. And then next, we did find the survey, the grant levels that you set out, Ariane, a little bit problematic as we did not have a heads up or an opportunity to meet as a coalition to discuss the questions asked. And additionally, a number of the directors had difficulty navigating and getting to the response they wish to make. But we, again, are available throughout this meeting to answer in real time. You just talked about the implementation plan. We do know that we were told we'd be involved in that process. So I hope that will happen because that's very important. We are the primary implementers of a number of the programmatic elements. So we do hope that will be considered and discussed. And we also, in all transparency, want to make sure we're working with you all as closely as possible. We're in discussion with legislative champions about legislation for the next General Assembly and in discussion for some pre-file options. We were very pleased with the incredible positive response from the General Assembly last year and the unanimous acclaim for what this program does and can do. The veto was unfortunate, given that the governor's office had continued to support our efforts, but these things happen. Right hand's trying to understand the left hand. It happens. We know we have the governor's support for this program despite that. So we are in discussion to continue to grow this program through the possibility of an additional funding, raising the cap and adjusting grant levels. However, we would very much wish to work directly with the authority with this legislation, which will give that organizational body, you all, more choices in the future. So we would be in complete discussion with you all regarding this. We want to make sure it works for the program, it works for the authority, it works for all of us to do what this program can do. And additionally, should the Department of Planning or the authority, if you all have any plans regarding this program in the legislative session, we hope that you will offer us this transparency as well so we can work together. It's very important that we do not have competing pieces of legislation. And it's very important that you all weigh in on any legislative process going forward. And that's the quick summary, and always available for questions before Bridget talks.
Great. Thank you, Lucille. Very well articulated, and appreciate those concerns and points that you put on there. Bridget, what would you like to add?
Yes, and this can also, part of this can be included as my public comment just to, help the meeting move forward. But first, I wanted to expand upon what Lucille said. How exactly will the Heritage Area Directors and the coalition be involved in the development of the implementation plan? We would like to know that. I don't know if now is the time or if you'll be able to formulate those thoughts and articulate that with us. And then, oh, sorry, I should pause and allow response later. Should we assume?
Yeah, I think Bridget, because we have a lot of approvals today, I think as Ariane and the staff are really sort of mapping out the process for the implementation plan, starting with the work that's already been done through the data collection over the past year, that I'm going to ask Ariane to get back to you all about what that process is going to entail.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And then I wanted to speak to, this is the part that can also be part of my public comment period, but I wanted to address reaffirming the role of Heritage Area Directors as core program partners, kind of piggybacking on what Lucille mentioned. I know there's a lot of new folks, and apologies for those that have been around and know, but the Maryland Heritage Areas were established as a collaborative community-based model, one in which Heritage Area Directors serve not just as grantees, but were essential implementers and strategic partners in advancing the goals of the Heritage Areas program. Historically, Heritage Area Directors were not only invited, but at one time required to attend MHAA board meetings. This practice recognized our central role in delivering the program's impact across the state, but recent changes, including the removal of the director names from the meeting minutes, reclassification of directors to include restriction of participation to either a timed public comment slot or a YouTube view only option, as the authority would see on their agenda. You'll see the authority members get a Google Meet calendar invite, but the Heritage Area Directors, along with the general public, have to do a YouTube live stream link. And so we feel that that represents a significant shift in tone and our relationship, which we value highly. This new structure creates a barrier to meaningful engagement and undermines the collaborative spirit that has long defined the success of the program. Heritage directors bring invaluable insight from the field, insight that can inform real-time decision-making, clarifying local implications of policy changes and improve outcomes statewide. Being restricted to comment only within the 30 minutes of a 2-hour meeting limits the ability to respond thoughtfully to topics and decisions that arise throughout the meeting itself. For instance, if you didn't sign up for a public comment, then those heritage area directors are not on this call. So if the authority would have a question or wanted to reach out to the heritage area directors themselves, they don't have that ability. So we respectfully urge the authority to restore the heritage area director status as active partners through meeting participation that allows us to engage in discussion, not just comment. We want to remain visible as stakeholders, and we offer perspective informed by the daily management of the very program the authority oversees. The program's strength lies in the partnership between the state and the regions. That partnership cannot function effectively when one half is relegated to the sidelines.
Thank you, Bridget. Nick, you have your hand up.
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously we're hearing from our heritage area partners that it sounds like they're concerned about their involvement here. I'm curious, you know, I have not been with the authority long enough to know the previous status, but it seems to me like a simple fix to this if the people carrying out the work are concerned about it. And I don't see any substantive reason to curtail their involvement, that we could make almost acting like an ex officio, where they can attend the meeting, they wouldn't have a vote, but they can be in here and they can ask questions just like any ex officio would of a board. It seems to me like that would be the most prudent way to deal with this. Is there some type of, did the deputy AG see a reason, or how did this come about, that this policy shift, I guess?
Yeah, Nick, I'll start off, and I don't want to get too bogged down because we do have a lot of important approvals today, but you know, I will take responsibility as chair, basically trying to manage a board meeting essentially where we have to take votes and we have fiduciary responsibility to take those votes. We have tried to restructure, I don't know that I would call it a policy so much as a restructuring of the agenda to ensure that we could get through the business of the authority in a reasonable amount of time. And ultimately, it's the authority members that have the fiduciary responsibility. So we had moved the coalition report up earlier in the meetings to ensure that there was that report and not running out of time at the end. That was often happening. And, you know, I take exception to the word public comment. We like to ensure that anyone, all grantees, anyone has the opportunity to speak up and share at the meeting. It's not so much of a policy so much as an ability to run the meeting. I mean, if any of you are running board meetings and you have fiduciary responsibilities, I would say how many of those board meetings essentially have on an ongoing basis everyone involved in your programming with you during and as active participants in the board meetings. So I am happy to have that conversation. I'd like to have it outside of this meeting because I am really concerned to make sure we get through all the approvals at this meeting. But it's really, you know, I think with all of the opportunities, really 3 opportunities throughout the course of our agenda for inputs, there's plenty of opportunity, and the board minute, everything's posted well in advance so that people are well aware of all levels of the intention of the meeting, because these are open meetings. So go ahead, Nick.
Yeah, understanding that we, you know, obviously have a busy agenda, but we hear this a lot at different meetings that, you know, well, we have to be really quick because we've got a big agenda. If we have big enough agendas, then we should meet longer. Mm-hmm. So if that's an issue, then I think that that's something we should take up. We shouldn't try to artificially squeeze ourselves in a manner that makes a core part of the program upset. And obviously we're hearing that on behalf of the coalition, their only statement and their only comment was basically, please let us be part of the meetings again. So I do think that that's important. And if it's a squeeze on time, we should be aware of that, because this is an important conversation, I think. And I understand we have other decisions to make today, but it does seem to me like it's an important conversation. I also think that I understand, I run board meetings, others on this call certainly run board meetings. And yeah, having every program partner involved in a board meeting would be challenging, but I think that this is unique. I think that they've made a compelling case that this is a unique situation. They're a key part in the program. If there's a question that comes up, or there's an issue that's brought up, or we want a real-time example of what's happening in the field that us on the authority would not be aware of, or staff might not be aware of, I think that they could present sort of an invaluable piece. So as long as it's not a policy and it's just sort of in practice, I'd like to see the directors invited to be basically ex officios to the next board meeting and have that capacity to speak, not be required to sign up like a member of the general public, because they're not the general public. They are key stakeholders in the program.
Thank you for that, Nick. Anyone else like to comment on this topic? Okay.
Thank you, Nick. We appreciate that.
Well, that's one perspective. I'm just trying to make sure we hear any other perspectives in the notion of being able to also operate as an authority and our fiduciary responsibility of that.
If we wanted to add coalition members to the authority, that would take a statutory change, because as of right now, that is not how we are structured.
Secretary Flora, that's not what I was suggesting. I think an ex officio, or no vote but able to comment, if they were doing it in practice before, I don't think that was violating the statute, was it?
No, but practices change over time, and the ability to run the meeting is also very important. And it was getting to a point where the discussion was essentially being dominated, and our inability to make business decisions as an authority was being, I believe, somewhat, fluid in terms of who were the voting members and who were not. And I still need to run the authority meeting. So I think this is a topic that we probably do need to have more discussion over, but I think it involves all of the authority members really thinking about how they can essentially carry out their duties and how much additional opportunity is there on the agenda and still carry out the agenda. And so right now we have 3 opportunities. We have the coalition report at the beginning, we have the heritage area updates at the end, and we have an opportunity for anybody, any of our grantees, any aspects of the program, to provide comment on the agenda of the business of the day. If there is an opportunity or a discussion of particular questions, my concern is to ensure that the answer to those questions are being balanced. And if we have, it's like a testimony. If you have testimony, you need to ensure that there's balanced testimony influencing our decision making as an authority. And so there's a lot of reasons we can agree to disagree. But from the standpoint of ensuring that our responsibilities as an authority are fulfilled, I have to take that into consideration as the chair, along with input that I can receive from the other members. So happy to discuss this more offline, but I would ask that we continue with the meeting at this point in time. And if anyone would like to reach out, I'd be happy to discuss it further. This isn't a policy so much as a desire to be able to manage and run an effective board meeting where the authority members are basically ensuring that they have adequate information and they are able to make the decisions they need to make as their responsibility as an authority. So I'm going to move on to the next agenda item, which is some of the upcoming, we do have the public comment. So this is our opportunity for anybody And I don't think we've ever really been hard and fast about this, Ariane, that I'm aware of. We just kind of like to know what the public comment are. So I believe you have a list of folks that have asked to comment about anything regarding this program or the agenda today. So why don't you go through that list?
Yes, happy to. We did ask for folks to keep their public comments to around 2 minutes. And first up is Lucille.
I'll keep it under that since I've already spoken. Having the public comments again at this time, it precedes the action items, so we can't really comment on the bulk of the meeting as the public, if we were the public, but also as heritage area directors during our highlights at the end. That is not for commenting on what's happening throughout the meeting. Again, we don't want to sidetrack anyone. We just want to be available to give responses if questions occur. That's all. And we do appreciate Nick Redding's perspective and assistance. Thank you.
Thanks, Lucille. Up next is Dee Dee, who may not have comments. Dee Dee, I know, sent me a note saying that she might be out. Dee Dee, are you here? What about Kim? Is there anything, Kim, that you'd like to comment on? You had signed up.
Yeah, I would just want to reiterate what has already been said, that it's important for us to be accessible. I think we've articulated that pretty well. So I'm just expressing our desire to do so.
Okay, thanks, Kim. Up next is Liz.
Okay, so thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for all who have worked so hard on the grants that will be voted on today. Please inform Heritage Area Directors when one of their grantees has declined or terminated a grant. Preferably bring us into discussion in advance of a decision, if that can happen. I only just learned about Sharpsburg, and that's an issue for me. During strategic plan meetings, I noted that loans should be recognized as part of the program. Inquiries about that do come to me from time to time, and I don't think it's well represented in the plan now. Maybe in the implementation phase, this can be considered. Why was a BRFA that reduces available grant funds by $340,000 pursued when there is a substantial balance of unspent operating funds carried over from the previous years? Even if that balance falls short of the need, the program could have supported more project grants if some of the funding for new software had come from that fund balance. And on the question of the grant software, since MHAA isn't the only program that uses the software, it seems unreasonable for MHAA to bear the full cost. My heritage area is reconsidering our local grant review process, and we can be most effective if we know of changes that will happen at the state level. So if this body is going to reconsider the state level approach, please let Heritage Area Directors know the timing and if you have a sense of what changes will be considered. I'm so pleased that the Maryland Museum Assistance Program has been funded after a long absence, if only modestly. And I want to thank Megan Bacco and the Maryland Museum Association for persistent leadership to see that happened. I served on the peer review panel for many years. And when it started, I believe the amount available for grants was less than $100,000. Tells you how old I am. This is important to MHAA because as the Museum Assistance Program grows, it may impact our own grant priorities. And I'm not calling for changes, but such discussion might be warranted in the future. I want to underscore that Meg and the other Heritage Area Directors willingly advocated for the Museum Assistance Program. We understand that the two complementary grant programs are both important. And speaking only for myself now, the same is true of the MHT non-capital grants. If the MHT board or some subset, perhaps the area representatives, were to advance a grassroots campaign for the MHT non-cap fund, I would do my part to help. MHAA and MHT are aligned, but they are not the same, and the MHT non-caps grants should not be funded at the expense of the MHAA budget. This year's highly competitive grant round makes that abundantly clear. And then thank you again for this opportunity to comment. I will conclude by noting that until recently, and I've been doing this since 2005, directors participated fully in these meetings. Now our access is limited, and that is concerning, contrary to the guiding principles of the newly adopted strategic plan, an impediment to efficiency, and to the advantages that can be gained from considering the experience of the 13 heritage areas that comprise the MHAA program. So thank you all.
Thank you, Liz.
Thanks, Liz. Up next is Emily Hubner.
Hi there, just wanted to be on the call. Thank you.
Thanks, Emily. Up next is Danielle Walters-Davis.
Hi, everybody. Same as Emily. Just wanted to be on the call. Thank you so much.
Shantae Daniels.
I don't believe Shantae is here today.
Okay.
Thank you.
Meg Bacco.
Good afternoon. My name is Meg Bacco. I'm the Executive Director of Anacostia Trails Heritage Area. I signed up for public comment to be able to participate in this meeting. Thank you very much.
And last is Bridget.
Oh, apologies. I lumped mine in together with the Coalition for Expediency for the meeting.
Okay, great. Thanks, Bridget. That concludes the people that signed up for public comment, Secretary Flora.
Great, thank you. And just a couple of thoughts before we move forward. One, regarding the software, that was an administrative decision of where that money should come from. We did not recommend it come from heritage areas. But obviously we're part of the administration. And so that was a budget decision that was made outside of any recommendation we did. And then secondly, I heard a key word, and I'm hearing and I'm listening, and that is accessible, and that the directors, that the authority have access to the directors for questions and comments. And I don't think there's any issue with that. It's more a matter of just trying to manage our meeting in an effective way with our responsibilities also. And so I'm sure we'll have more discussion on that. But it's just really helpful. And then, when you're in a virtual meeting, it's always a little bit more challenging than anywhere else. And I just want to say also kudos to Megan and Shantae for the MML booth. I stop by, as I always do, when I'm at MML. And as always, they did a great job. Everyone, showcasing the work of the heritage areas at MML. So thank you for being there. And I look forward to seeing you all at NACO in a couple of weeks. So thank you all. And please know that I am trying to run the authority meeting. It is not saying that we don't want your input, your discussion, your advice. I just had to try to find a line between how do I run a meeting and how do we get that advice and still have the responsibility of the authority members. So I'm sure we'll have more discussion on this topic. That said, Elizabeth.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment on the placement of the public comment piece in the agenda, because I think we told Lucille that it would be better to have it at the end of the meeting. But in hearing Liz's public comment, it gave Liz an opportunity to speak to her point of view regarding the non-capital action item that's coming up next. My feeling had always been having the public comment before the action items was better, because then the public could comment on whatever the action agenda is before action is taken rather than after the fact. But I think we would certainly be open to moving where public comment appears on the agenda. It's just depending on where it's most sort of effective for the public to have a meaningful comment. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth, because once again, I'll take responsibility. That's exactly why we moved the comment period up in the meeting, is so that all of those, since the agenda does go out and everything, that we would get all of that information before we go into deliberations.
ahead of time, and be able to take that into consideration as we go into our action items and deliberations. I see Bridget has her hand up. Bridget, would you
Yes.
like something more
Yes,
there?
just really quick, promise I'll be, and to Liz's point, that's exactly what we're saying, is that we're not the public. We adore the public. We serve the public. That's who we are best partners with. But if we could comment throughout, that would solve most of the things that we were discussing today, all of us. And you heard from so many heritage area directors that are saying, we just want to be involved. We just want to be a partner. We just want to do our best and partner with you in the best way. We just want to make this the best program it can be and continue to grow it. Thank you.
Thanks, Bridget. I really do appreciate everyone's thoughts, and that balance for me is also being able to try to run the meeting. So we'll try to figure out some halfway medium here, I think, so that we can just make good decisions also in terms of our responsibilities. So let's move to one of our first items for consideration. This is something that has come to our attention, that what has been typically a distribution of $300,000 to MHT for non-capital historic preservation grants, which I think it was kind of alluded to earlier. We're all one big family because this all relates to all the work I think we're trying to do. That in fact is not an automatic, that in essence, this should be voted on by the board, the authority. And so it's really just come to our attention. We've discussed it with our legal counsel and realized that this is something that, even though it's been happening for the last 7 years, this is why things do get reviewed every few years to see, okay, is this how we're supposed to be operating? This is one of them. That it's just been happening without coming to the authority. And so we're putting that in front of the authority. While we have drafted a resolution, that does not mean that this has to be approved and accepted. It's just what we would do if we wanted to continue that practice this year. It would just be for this year. Alternatively, if this is not approved, those funds would stay in the MHAA system for additional grant making, and it affects the outcome of our grants for this year. So I want to put this out on the table because it is something that we will now be doing every year to make this decision or not in terms of moving of these funds as it's been practiced over the last 7 years. And so I see a hand up right away. Let me, Melissa, before I go to you, I want to go to Ariane to see if she wants to make any clarifying comments about what I just described.
Yeah, thank you, Secretary Farr. I just wanted Adam to weigh in. Adam, does the authority need to vote on this resolution either way? And if they choose that they don't want any funds to be distributed to MHT, then they should put 0 in that blank?
The authority has the power to determine whether to allocate this funding to the non-capital, MHT non-capital program. It doesn't have to, it can just say no, it can just vote no, in which case you wouldn't even have a resolution. I think the resolution is only there in order to effectuate the transfer.
Okay, I just wanted to legally make sure that we were clear and covered on what needed to happen. Thank you.
So if there's no motion and there's no desire to do this, then it's just flat. We do nothing. We move on.
Well, I think you would vote to not transfer it, but
okay.
you wouldn't need to have a resolution effectuating the transfer. You would just have it was defeated,
right?
And so it wouldn't occur.
And Secretary Floor, I think Elizabeth may want to just chime in before the discussion.
Okay, well, let me go to Melissa because she patiently waited. Unless, and then we'll go to Elizabeth too.
Yeah, and I think Elizabeth's probably going to answer my question. I was just wondering, I read the memo, but it didn't really explain before 2018 how the non-capital grant program was funded. And so I'm not totally clear on what created that change for it to come out of the heritage area budget, and what efforts, if any, have been made in the past to go back to how it used to be funded. I assume it was like an annual allocation that MHT would have to ask for to be put in the budget. And so I just kind of wanted to hear a little bit more about that history and what efforts have been made to get it back in as a line item in the budget. And if we can, I guess I also just add my comment. I think this funding is incredibly important. I don't want to see this work go away, but I also don't think it should be funded out of MHAA, and that maybe we need to put like a sunset, like this is the last year it'll be funded out of this funding source, and we have to investigate other ways to fund that program. I'm just throwing it out there, not even necessarily that the sunset has to be, this year or next year when we want to see this work done, but I want to make sure that it's funded in a sustainable way that's not taking the money out of the Heritage Area program.
Thank you, Melissa. Elizabeth.
Yeah, so for the authority members that may not be familiar with the non-capital historic preservation grant program, the memo hopefully that was included in your packet gives you a little background. And as Melissa mentioned, this program has been around really from the very beginnings of the Maryland Historical Trust, and it's used to conduct survey and identification and evaluation of historic properties, which is typically the first step before you make decisions on what you protect, what you preserve, how you interpret, and so forth. So things like National Register nominations, archaeological surveys, architectural surveys, cultural landscape documentation, and so forth. And to your question, Melissa, so for many, many years, this program was funded with general funds out of the budget that came directly to the Maryland Historical Trust. That program got up to like $1 million at its height years and years ago. In the, when the Great Recession hit back in I forget when now, I've blocked it out of my mind. Some time ago, that money got zeroed out, taken out of our budget. It was at a time when we were asked to give up programs and staff and so forth. So for a number of years, that program was not funded at all. We did have general funds put back in our budget at the amount of $200,000 in 2017, I believe it was, or maybe it was 2016, just as the state was sort of coming back from the recession and things were getting better. And we did that through an over the target request, the type of thing you're probably familiar with, Melissa, or other state agency folks, when we put in our budget. And we had that funding for a year. The following year, the Heritage Areas program doubled from $3 million to $6 million. And at the same time that happened, our general funds were zeroed out of our budget for the non-cap program. And instead, language was put into the BRFA such that up to $300,000 could come out of the Heritage Areas Authority Fund to support the non-capital grant program. So that is when things changed, after we'd only had a year of the general funding back to us. And so since then, that is where the non-capital program has been funded. As far as this year, I know this is a particularly tough year for the authority in terms of grants, because there is that BRFA language for the $340,000 to go towards the grants management software. So this would be a large hit on the funding available for project grants or for any grants, right? It would be if you put the two together. So I recognize this is going to be a very difficult year to provide funding for the non-capital grant program. And what I would like to do is answer any questions that folks have, but then step off the call so you can have a very frank discussion among yourselves, maybe without me present, in case that would be helpful. I don't want to stifle any conversation. So that's a little background. Does that answer your question, Melissa, or did I skip something?
Yeah, no, that history is good. And so when the BRFA language was put in, it wasn't temporary. That was they designed it to be a permanent fix of how to fund this non-capital program.
That is correct. And we have, I think the other part of your question was, have we tried to bring that general fund money back to fund the non-cap instead of going to the BRFA language? We have not been successful. Frankly, it may be that we will not be successful until this language is taken out of the BRFA, and I think we saw that in the last legislative session with the bill. that was one of the provisions of the heritage area bill, to do that. And we have been exploring, are there other opportunities to get general funds back into the program? This is not going to be a good budget year to do that, to make that request, as you may, recognize. We are thinking about, are there other sources of revenue that could support the program? And we have had conversations with DNR about, is there somewhere else out of program open space that we could take this money directly? And of course, they have concerns because program open space has faced so many challenges recently with the real estate transfer taxes being down the past year or so. So that's an ongoing conversation.
Thanks. Any other questions about this? Because basically we have a decision. Do we want to, as an authority, which has been asked in the past, but we've realized that we should have been over the last 7 years, do we want to distribute an amount up to $300,000 for the non-CAP programs or not? And so that's the decision in front of us. Melissa again, and then Nick.
This might be on your website, and sorry I didn't look it up beforehand, but are these non-capital grants competitive, or are they projects that are just prioritized by MHT based on need and your assessment of what's lacking and what we need information on? I was just wondering how that, the memo listed examples of several projects, but I was just wondering, how MHT decides what survey work is completed.
Yeah, it's a very competitive program because it's not a lot of money to fulfill a lot of demand. It's really the only source of funding for this kind of activity in the state that the state provides outside of certified local government subgrants. And so there are, it's a rating and ranking process that's done by staff using criteria that's outlined in the statute and can be tweaked annually if there are special priorities. So I think one of the areas which we've really prioritized the past couple of years has been survey and identification of resources associated with underrepresented communities. So that's been something that's been of greatest interest, but it can be changeable, from year to year, like something that's associated with the semiquincentennial celebration or so forth.
Okay, Nick?
Thank you. This sitting here as the CEO of Preservation Maryland, this is a challenging conversation for everyone to be having, because I think we all recognize that this is important work, and at the same time, we're here to support the heritage areas. I just kind of want to frame some of this, I think, for some of the other authority members who don't have reason to kind of pay attention to national preservation policy as much and how that's impacting what's going on here, which is, up until a week ago, we still didn't have an FY25 distribution for the state historic preservation offices. So almost $1 million was kind of being held by the federal government. That would have decimated the ability and capacity of MHT to work. In addition to that, although that money has been, released for the SHPO's offices to apply for, we're looking at a proposed FY26 budget. It's been proposed by the president, of course, but it'll be up to Congress to act on what they do with it, but proposed to zero out essentially the historic preservation fund, leave a little bit left, a few million in it, but for all intents and purposes, zeroed out. And so that million that Maryland depends on to make up a good chunk of the SHPO's budget could potentially be lost. I say all of that because preservation is and state-led documentation efforts is in a really challenging position right now. And this would be a tough moment, I think, to take these funds from the program, from the non-cap program, I'm saying. Understanding it's also a tough moment for the heritage area not to have these. But I would also offer and just want to be part of the decision-making, and that there's probably not a single heritage area grant that will be made today that is not made possible because of survey, research, and documentation. It is the first step. So everything that's being funded today, in one way or another, the resource that it worked on or the community that it's engaged in, whatever it might be, it probably all started at some point. It might have been as far back as the 70s or the 60s, but at some point it started with documentation. So in some ways, I also think that if the authority decides, and you can tell I'm on the fence here, so I'm curious where everybody else goes, but if the authority were to decide, yes, we're going to transfer the funds this year, and I love Melissa's concept where it's like, we're not going to do this again. We put some language in there saying we don't intend on doing this again, so the advocates can go before the General Assembly and say, this isn't an option in the future. We've got to do something. But if the authority were to award those funds for the non-cap this year, I also think there's an opportunity for the authority to say, to make the case that this is a component of the Heritage Area Program. The Heritage Area Program not only supports all of these non-cap and capital projects through the traditional competitive process, but we're also supporting survey, documentation, and research of underrepresented communities at a time when that kind of work is threatened and is uncertain at the federal level whether or not those funds will be there. So I don't think it's as if we're giving this money to some completely other issue or program. We're funding something that is critical and core and is at the ground level of every effective heritage area project. So I just wanted to give people that context as they make the decision and sort of struggle with this as well. And I appreciate what Elizabeth said, that it is a tough year given the request for those software funding as well. And so this is a tough decision for the authority to make, but I wanted to offer that as I'm trying to make my own decision. And I'm curious to hear what others have to say.
Thank you, Nick. Really appreciate that perspective and the added information. Pete, let's go to you, and then I have Nathan in the queue.
Nick, thank you very much. That is helpful. As a past recipient of these funds, I've seen the power that these things have in queuing up later work later projects that are much more directly heritage tourism projects. There is a direct connect here. These funds are to our field what the pure science grants are to the advancement of medicine or other fields. It's the building blocks. What would be helpful to me is a little bit of information talking about where levels of demand. We have current evidence for this year. What is the total request for heritage area funds? What is the available funding that we're able to give out? So we get a sense of proportionality of that. Elizabeth, can you give us a sense in recent years about, I believe we haven't had more than 300,000, but what has the field's demand been for this? Have we had trouble reaching that? Have we had double that demand? What's been the scale of the need on the non-capital side?
Yeah, that's a good question. I might be able to find that while you all continue to discuss. I do not know it off the top of my head. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's go to Nathan next, and then I have Hillary with you after that. And then Nick, if you don't mind, I'll go to Hillary after Nathan, since you've already had a chance, and I'll go back to you, unless it's clarifying something. So Nathan, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I really agree with Nick's comments. I am very supportive of continuing this. I think Elizabeth's comments really solidified that for me. On the one hand, I don't think that this is the cleanest way to fund this program. And obviously it's been a lot of turmoil over the years on getting funding, not getting funding. But I think there was a clear intent way back when that this was going to be funded through this process. Again, not the cleanest, and hopefully in the future it can be figured out. But also realizing that if we put some kind of sunset, I think that we can't be naive to where the state budget conversations are. So this is probably not the time to do that, given the comments again that Elizabeth made that this kind of was the plan way back when, and funds were expanded, and the hope was to include to fund this. I just think this program is way too important for these historic preservation grants. I know my community has used it, and I know that other municipalities have used it, and I am really fearful that this is an area, to Nick's point, people start here. This is where you start with kind of the research and the documentation, and it really leads out to so many other things. It's really where Main Street designations happen from there. I think it really supports a lot of the continues the heritage area work and the things that go on in the heritage areas. And so if people don't have funding to access to do this kind of groundwork at the very beginning, they're just not going to do it, which means we are going to lose preservation efforts, especially what we're seeing at the federal and other level, and the funding is going to get tight. I just think that people will say this is something we just simply can't afford to do. There is no funding to do it, so we're just not going to do it. And that's what I think is going to be a big problem if we go that route.
Thanks, Nathan. I'm going to go to Hillary and then back to Nick, and then whoops, we have another hand up. And then probably try to see where we're at and see if we can move this forward. So Nick, and then Mr. L. Holland.
Is Hillary not? Oh,
Hillary's next.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll be quick because Nathan sort of covered the point I was going to make. I do see these funds as, it was put in statute for a reason that up to $300,000 can be used for this purpose. And I do see that it really complements the work of the heritage areas and the authority. And I definitely see Melissa's point about how it would be great at some point to not be in this position where we have to be using some of the Maryland heritage areas money for these grants. But I'm concerned about putting either intent language or something that that this would be the only year that we do it, given the state's budget situation. I think all grant programs that I've heard of in 25, unfortunately, received less money than we wanted to. And I anticipate, 26, and I anticipate that's going to continue in 27. So I just don't want to put language that's going to limit our ability to make this decision in the future, because I think we're going to have a few tough budget years before maybe general funds would be on the table again. So thank you.
Thanks, Hillary. Nick, back to you.
Yeah, I have an idea and a question. So the idea is, and this is maybe for Elizabeth, when the non-caps, the survey and research grants are announced, is that something that could be jointly announced with the heritage area authorities? Heritage area program, just like when the heritage area announces, hey, we're giving out, 4 million or 5 million, whatever the dollar is, of so many grants to these project grants. Then when this comes along, the heritage area, which supports this, funds this program, is pleased in partnership with MHT to announce that these grants are also going out, so that it doesn't feel like it's completely divorced, and that the heritage areas get some publicity benefit out of it. That's just one thought, and I don't know if that takes an act or a regulation or a motion to make something like that happen. It seems like something that we probably could do because it's all under the same heading. And then the question I had is, does the coalition have a position on this? Is like, I know that's sort of part and parcel of the discussion before, but can we ask Secretary Flora, does the coalition have a position? Do they have no position? Are they opposed? Just so that we know kind of where the directors are on this as we're making our decision, because I frankly don't know.
Yeah. I'd like to have I think Lucille has left. It came up, and Bridget may be still on. So I'll call on Bridget to determine whether or not this has been discussed at the coalition level and there's any consensus.
Yes. And if I can, I will defer to Liz. Liz mentioned it in her comments and knows all the details. Liz, you're on. Liz?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I would say our coalition position would be consistent with the with what was reflected in the last statute, the last bill that was accepted but then vetoed. I also will note that I do not believe that MHAA had a voice in that initial BRFA that established this tradition of transfer of 300,000. I was around at that time, and I think we have gone back and looked at the minutes, and we've not seen anything about that other than acknowledgement after the fact that it was happening. So anyway,
Thanks.
That's the best I can say.
Yes. So and if I can add, I'll just say that, yeah, we were blindsided. I think the authority was blindsided with that as well. We didn't know until we were actually in the budget hearings that was happening. And then we were under the assumption that it was just going to be 1 year. We didn't realize it was going to be in perpetuity or in statute. Also, I know this is a stretch, but I just want to add, I'm going out there. MHT also takes 10% to administer these $300,000. So they actually take $330,000. And you'll see that reflected when you see admin cost at 570. And I don't know how that works out, how they can take 300,000 and then also take 10% to administer the grant program. I think that should at least be considered on the table to, be halted. Thank you.
Thanks, Bridget. Thank you all. I want to get to Luana, who's had her hand up, patiently waiting. Thank you. Luana, are you there?
Sorry about that. I was muted. Actually, I saw Ariane shaking your head just now, and I was just wondering. Well, I suppose to me, like Nick, I was originally on the fence about this, but also hearing his comments in terms of, thinking about what's going on nationally, because I know we're seeing it nationally just across the board in terms of how the SHPOs are being affected, how individual grantees are being affected in projects across the country. And I can't say if this is a time that we should put like the equivalent of a sunset on this quite yet, just because of the way that SHPOs are being affected and state budgets are being affected in terms of preservation. However, it also sounds as if the coalition, in terms of its original intent, it sounds as if they were blindsided by this, is what you were saying, Brigitte, and that perhaps it is something to consider in the future in terms of this possibly being revised somehow in terms of its language or purpose. But otherwise, I do agree. This is really important work to continue in terms of survey and documentation. I know the brick and mortar is always like the flashier of it, but that survey and documentation work is incredibly important as well.
Yes. Yeah, before we go to the next two hands and responding with Bridget and then Elizabeth, I think has some additional information. I just do want to point out, we need a decision on this today because it affects our next decision, which is around how much money we want to. We've already done our grant review based on a total amount that does not include this 300,000. Based on our decision today, if we were to include the 300,000, we would go to our reserve list, and that total amount would increase. So I do want to encourage the discussion because there's some really good deliberation going on here. But I also want to let you know that it's important we do make a decision today. So I'm going to be asking for a motion soon, so that we can try to make that happen. So I think at this point I have Bridget adding additional information for us to be aware of, and then Elizabeth has probably looked up what she was asked about. We'll go back to Nathan, and then I'd like to see if there's a motion that anyone wants to put on the table. We have a draft one here with a blank. So Bridget.
Yes, and I'll be quick again, but I know that I just want to highlight that these projects are outside of the heritage areas boundaries, so that is a thing. This money was created to fund these special community revitalization areas. And can be in or can be out. And I also just want to reiterate that there's an extra 30,000 being taken for administration costs that I think are unnecessary. So thank you.
Thanks, Bridget. Okay, back to Elizabeth, who may have some additional.
Yeah, just answering Pete's question. So last year, I have the numbers for last year. There was $1.4 million worth of requests for the 300,000. So that's about 4.5 times the available funds. So that gives you some sense of the demand. In terms of the 10% admin off of 300,000, that is not correct. No admin is taken off of 300,000. All of the 300,000 is awarded as grants. So I just wanted to make that clarification. And then in terms of the authority being blindsided by the BRFA language, that is certainly true. So is MHT, so is the department. What happens in the budget process is you make that request of what you need, and then what comes out the other end when the budget is released is something you don't really know what's in there until it hits the General Assembly. So we were as surprised as everyone else. So those would be just my additions. If there are any other questions for me, I'm happy to stick around, but I think I would like to hop off so that you can sort of freely discuss. Are there any questions, like material questions for me? I assume, Bridget, you have questions.
Yes, I do, because
okay.
the budget allocation is 6 million and MHT admin takes 600,000. So how does that not take 30 for the 300?
It's different now.
No, it's not. They take 10% of the 6 million for admin.
Correct.
So what should happen is 300 should be taken off. So it should be 5,700,000. And then MHT admin, I think, should get 570,000. Not that they don't deserve every penny, and not that I'm being petty about this. It just, I'm trying to make sense of it in my brain, and happy to have someone say I'm wrong or give me other feedback, honestly, truly. Oh, sorry. The camera wasn't on. Apologies.
I want to keep us focused on 300,000 and the fact that we have to make
Yep,
this.
perfect.
So,
Thank you.
Nathan, one more comment, and then I'm going to try to see if there's anyone that wants to make a motion out there, because we have other items we do need to, and this is a tough one. I get it, and I'm agnostic. I want to make sure the authority makes a good decision here.
Yep. And I'm sorry, I just want to say one quick thing, that did you show the authority what numbers were still outstanding in terms of need for the Heritage Areas program? Anyway, apologies. I know this is why.
The next resolution I'm trying to get to. Okay, folks, clearly, and Elizabeth, I see no reason for you to get off the call. We have several people that are potentially had vested interest on both sides with this, so please stay on. I think, it's very clear the way this has been described that this is essentially pre-development money, both inside and outside of heritage area boundary areas. It is a unique pot of money. Money is tight right now. I will tell you, across the agencies, we have a hiring freeze, and we have to find 120 million that has been mandated by the legislature in all of our budgets. So there's a lot of changes going on right now. This pot of money is part of the total. It comes out of program open space. It will either, through the action today, determine if that's going to continue for this year to support non-capital historic preservation grants. I like what Nick said about maybe there's a way to sort of ensure that that gets tied back in terms of how that's released, or in these very tight times and with the huge list of grant requests that were made, the heritage area grant requests, it simply this doesn't happen this year, and it gets put into the total for the heritage area grants. And so I just want to be really clear where we're going with this. And it doesn't even have to be the 300,000. This authority could say something less or zero, but we do need to make the decision. And so I'm going to go to a couple more hands up,
and then I'm going to see if there's a motion. So Pete and then Nathan. Pete, are you on?
Yeah, thank you, Secretary. I'd actually put my hand up to put the motion on the table.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
I will put resolution R300. I move that resolution with the amount of 300,000 in the blank.
Okay, so let's see if we have a second for that, and then we'll go back to discussion. Is there a
Second.
second? I'm sorry?
Second, Nathan.
Nathan is second. So we have a first and a second of the motion that, of the resolution that's in front of us right now. Are there other comments or questions before I call the vote?
I did
Secretary.
have a comment.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, I've got Melissa's hand up. Well, Nathan, you had your hand up first, and then Melissa
Yes.
is next, and then we'll call the vote.
Yeah, I think Secretary Fleury, you pointed this out, but I wanted it to be clear, unless I'm mistaken, that I don't know that the authority really has any authority to sunset this. I mean, I think based on what I'm hearing is we would have to decide. I mean, we could put out a policy or a position that this will be the last year or next year will be the last year or whenever, but I think it, based on how it's written in the law, it still has to come back every year. And we can't really guarantee that future authority members will always vote in the way to not give money. I mean, it could change year after year. So I think that's important to note that we can't really decide to end this because we don't have that authority.
Great.
We
Thank
can
you.
choose to vote no in future years, but others could then choose to vote yes. So.
Yes, thank you for that, Nathan. And like I said, this has just been automatically happening every year for the last 7 years. This is the first time that we've become aware of the fact that this is actually something that should be acted on by authority, which is why we're bringing it to the authority today. So I'm going to go to Melissa and then Nick, and then then we're going to try to call for a vote.
Okay, I have 3 thoughts I wanted to share before I vote. One is that I think of this very similarly about how the MHAA money comes out of the POS funding. You know, you can frame it as it's being siphoned away, but I'm sure that's how DNR feels quite a bit about this program in general, taking the $6 million out of the POS fund. So it's very similar, but I think we can argue it's very important work. And so if it's in statute and the legislators said that this is how they want it to be funded for, I can't disagree with that. But 2, I think we wouldn't be as wringing our hands about it if there was just generally more funding to go around. And so I just wanted to take the time to just emphasize again the importance of raising that cap, that when economic times are better, if we have more than 6 million, the little tiny 300,000 won't really make a difference. Like people won't feel, you know, that as threatened, like it's, you know, taking out of their own budget. So I just wanted to make sure that it's on the authority's mind about how to, just like Lucille said earlier in the meeting, how can we work together to, you know, put forward legislation to be considered to raise that cap so that, again, when budget times are better, we're able to allocate more money all around. And then 3, I already forget number 3. Of course, maybe it'll come to me again. Well, anyway, that I am in support of the resolution as well, though, so I'm ready to take a
Thank you. Okay, last comment, and then I'm going to call for the vote. Nick.
I actually, it's not a comment, it's a friendly amendment, which would be to add to the resolution sort of at the end, and to encourage the Maryland Historical Trust to coordinate announcement with and credit the Maryland Heritage Area Authority for their support. And I think that that would be valuable so that it just is clear that it's the intent and the desire of the authority to put that into practice, which I think would be a good thing and would let grantees that are getting non-cap money know, oh, wow, I should be supportive of the Heritage Area Program, because I'm sure most of them have no clue at this point. And I don't know if you would even need that language, but I think it would be helpful just to put it in there so that perhaps in future years, it would just become practice, normal practice.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'll go back to the first and second to see if you would accept those friendly amendments. Pete?
I'll accept the amendment, yes.
Okay, Nathan?
Yes.
Okay, and the friendly amendment is language that would be referencing the the reference, any announcement of the funds fee basically tied back to the Mountain Heritage Areas. And I do see the benefit in that, because I think in the discussion we've really recognized this is kind of a foundational thing that helps heritage areas, even though in some cases it does go outside of boundaries. So, okay, let's call a vote, folks. This has been a good, healthy discussion. I am going to put it on the table. All of those in favor of the resolution with the amendment that was put forth, please raise your hands and keep your hand up if you hopefully can find that hand raise mechanism on the tools here off to the side. And if you can't, very good. I'm seeing all those go up. So please keep those.
Laura, I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to make sure that we're absolutely crystal clear on what's being voted on. Are we saying that the full 300,000 will be distributed to MHT non-cap?
Yes, it's the resolution as written.
To be put in the blank is 300,000.
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure everybody's clear on that.
Okay, so let's leave those hands in place while the staff counts. The hands up and records who. I think we definitely have a majority here. Just let me know, Martha, when you've got everyone recorded.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, then anyone out there that's opposed, please raise your hand. Put the other hands down. Okay, now just the opposed hands, please go up. And we'll get those recorded. So we have Melissa and Peter are opposed.
They were in favor, so I think they're just languishing hands.
Okay, get your hands down. Okay, only the hands up that are opposed to the resolution with the amendment. Okay, anyone abstaining? Put your hand up. Elizabeth is abstaining. Okay, I'm not seeing any other abstentions, and hopefully those numbers all total up. And the motion passes. It is the 300,000.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I did not record your vote.
Oh, I usually just stay neutral because I'm facilitating, but if you want my vote, I will abstain. I should be like Elizabeth and abstain.
Thank you.
Okay. So the motion passes. It is the 300,000 in here. This is something that we will do every year as circumstances change, and we will include the amendment by Nick to ensure that when those non-cap grants are made, that there is a reference to the fact that this is coming out of Marathon Heritage Area, and we could even go so far as, but the motion did not include public program open space, but at least Marathon Heritage Area. Nick.
Yeah, sorry. Out of abundance of caution, I want to move to abstention if you'll let me change my vote, just because we have in the past applied for grants and could be applying in the future. And just kind of how we always do that with the heritage areas, I would want to follow the same, since the money in theory could follow. So if you'll permit me to change my vote to abstention, I'd rather be that way, listed that way.
That's fine. And we still have majority and the motion still passes. So thank you. Okay, folks. Great discussion. It leads us to the next one, which is easy then, because with the 300,000 going to the non-cap, that means that the next resolution in terms of the additional amount becomes moot. So we will not be taking action on resolution 400, and we'll move on to the next one, which is around the unspent prior year emergency and grant funds available for 2026, because we basically, as per some of our past activity, have made this something that we act on, that we have to basically put forth every year. We had acted on a not to exceed amount of 100,000 for the reserve funds, and we need to basically determine if we want to do that moving forward. And I'm actually going to ask Ariane to pick up on this, just so I don't get something wrong on this one, to make sure I've got it right in terms of making sure everyone understands what we're taking potential
Sure.
action on.
Yes. If you'll, for the members that were with us last year, remember that there was a resolution to set a cap on the amount of the reserve funds, and any excess over that cap would automatically go to grants on the reserve list. So as Secretary Flora said, the cap that was set last year was 100,000. Anything over 100,000 that accumulated went to grants on the reserved list. The accumulation of funds happens when we have grants that have been awarded that underspend. That money comes back to the program or never gets distributed. The other way that reserve funds accumulate is when you set aside emergency funds like you did for fiscal year 26, and those funds do not get fully expended in that fiscal year, they then go into the reserve fund the next year. So what is before you is asked similar to last year. Do you all want to set a cap on the reserve funds? You don't have to. Before last year, there was not a cap in place and the money just accumulated. But the position or the point that was made from the authority last year was if we have money to spend that can go towards grants, why wouldn't we do that and have a mechanism that is efficient for getting that money into the hands of grantees? So this resolution proposes 100,000 again. You can change that amount. You can decide not to vote. As Secretary Flora mentioned earlier, you might want to reconsider the amount if you want a higher cap to be able to let more funds accumulate if there's the possibility of wanting to create some type of different emergency funding mechanism for our partners that are suffering from federal cuts.
Thanks, Ariane. Any questions for Ariane on this? Like I said, we did this last year, so some of you have been around, know what this is all about, but we have a few new members also, and so any questions about what we're acting on here? Nick, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Ariane's question about the federal cuts. I feel like we should leave the executive committee with the discretion to make those decisions rather than passing some blanket policy, because I'm not really sure what would come in or what that's going to look like, and that changes and is so dynamic. So I think it would be better to leave the executive committee with that discretion. And then if in a future meeting they come back and say we need some direction, or we're seeing this particular issue pop up, then we could address it then. But I think there's too many moving parts right now to come up with a policy. So I think as it stands, it's appropriate.
My comment wasn't about policy. It was about if you want more funds to be available in case you create a policy. Because right now there would only be $100,000 to go towards any kind of new policy to address that.
I still think, well, I stick, okay, that's interesting. I don't think I understood that, but I appreciate the clarification. I think the amount that's there is appropriate. The projects that came in, have done their due diligence, have worked hard to put together projects that are compelling. And I'd rather see that money go out the door rather than wait to backfill cuts. So I think this is the appropriate amount.
Okay. Pete has his hand up. Go ahead, Pete. You're on mute.
I'll learn to do this technology sooner or later. I was anticipating your call for the motion.
Well, I would love to have that if you're ready to make one.
I will move resolution R500 as prepared.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Okay. Any questions, comments before I call for the vote? Okay, let's call for the vote. All of those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, Martha, let me know when you have those recorded.
Just one more minute. Okay, thank you.
Okay, hands down. Practice your technology. Those are all closed out, and then I'll ask for anyone that's opposed as soon as those hands come down. Okay, anyone opposed to the resolution, raise your hand. I don't see any going up unless you're slow on the trigger. Anyone abstaining from this one? Not seeing anything. Okay, motion passes. Thank you very much.
And that basically brings us to part 2 of this one when this happens, is that we have to essentially take action to then take the excess funds and move them into funding projects on the reserve list. And so since we've already agreed that we want to cap at 100 and move it all over, I just simply need to get on the books that the excess goes into funding projects on the reserve list. Would anyone like to make this motion? Pete, is that a motion?
All right,
First?
I'm on a roll here. I'll move resolution R600 as prepared.
Thank you very much. Do I have a second?
Second, Sandy.
Sandy, thank you. Okay, I'll go in reverse order this time and assume everyone's on board. Anyone opposed to this resolution? Okay, I don't see any hands up. Anyone abstaining from this resolution? Okay, then put your hand up if you're in favor of this resolution. And I believe everyone else must be in favor. And Martha will record that and the motion will pass. So while she's doing that, we can get ready for the next step of today.
I'm all set. Thank you.
You got it? Thanks, Martha. Okay, so the next one really gets us to the grant review process and everything that goes into big drum roll of approving this year's fiscal year grant, 26 grants. I see LaWanda's hand up though. Is that from the carryover on the vote, or did you have a question before we go forward? Okay, I think that's, yes, LaWanda, do you have a question before we move into this next segment? No.
No.
Hand is down. Okay. Okay. Ariane is going to walk us through the review process, just, you know, once again, to refresh our brains and for some of us that are new, so people kind of have a refresher. And also keep in mind, we did change our procedures a year ago to ensure that there was ample time for everyone confidentially. Thank you all for holding those confidences. To review the recommended list that came out of the review process. And we did not get any comments on any of that. So we will be moving forward to seek approval today, but I asked Ariane to do the overview of the process, particularly for some of the newer members, so that we all understand the really high level of due diligence that goes into this. And I believe we also have Kevin with us too. So Ariane, why don't you take it away from here on this?
Thanks, and I will be very quick because I know that we're off schedule and we want to have time to approve our grants. So wanted to just give a quick overview of the process and the number of grants and the types of grants. We do have 5 different grants that we review and approve: management, marketing, and block grants that go to heritage areas, and capital and non-capital projects that go to our nonprofit and local jurisdiction partners in the heritage areas. A couple of different review processes are in place for management and block grants. Those are reviewed by program staff. That's Andrew, Martha, and myself. And for marketing grants, we did get a 3-person panel, team of volunteers, your own authority members. That was Sandy, Nathan, and Melissa. For fiscal year 26, we did receive, I outlined this in the memo that was sent with the 2026 grants recommendation list, so I won't go into every detail, but just a reminder that we had 175 full applications, total ask of over 9.4 million. The management and block grants, the review was completed, as I said, by the program staff. There were some few minor clarifications that we asked for. The heritage areas got right back to us. All of those are being recommended for funding. The marketing grants, again, there were a few clarifications. Heritage areas got right back to us. All of those are being recommended for funding. For the capital and non-capital, just wanted to remind everyone that we have a 2-level review process that takes place. There's the local review that's conducted by our heritage area management entities. They put together their own review panels. They put forward a prioritized list of recommendations that we then share with our state level grants review panel. That panel is made up of 40 members. They're all publicly nominated and selected from across the state, really varying degrees of expertise, personal demographics, geographic locations. Every heritage area has a representative, if you will, someone that either works or lives in that area. And we organize them into small groups so that they can read the same set of applications, have conversation. They meet with the heritage area directors. The directors can answer questions and present their prioritized list of recommendations. And then that full grants review panel comes together for 2 meetings in June where they make final decisions about what they're putting forward to you all for approval. And I'll stop there because I know that we have a lot to get to. Any questions? If we don't have any questions, I'm going to turn things over to Andrew that's going to be walking us through the various resolutions to approve our fiscal year 26 grants. And as Secretary Flores said, we have Kevin McDonald with us, who's the chair of our grants review panel. Kevin has been serving on the grants review panel for the past 6 years since it came into being, and has been serving as chair for the last 4 years, has done a phenomenal job leading us. Sadly, our regulations require that Kevin rolls off this year. So I just wanted to publicly thank Kevin for the outstanding, consistent leadership that he's provided as the chair of the grants review panel. He will be very missed, but happy that he could be with us here today. Andrew's going to do intros on these resolutions and then introduce Kevin.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and keep this fairly brief since I know we're running behind a little bit on time, but we just have 3 resolutions to get through here to approve all of our grants. The first of which is going to be Resolution R700 pertaining to the management, marketing, and block grants. This year, all 13 of our heritage areas came in for management and block grants, and 6 of them came in for marketing grants. So the resolution language that you have before you here is approving all 13 of those, or rather all of those grants as they've been reviewed. And it only has 1 recusal associated with it. Sandy Turner identified a recusal based on the heart of the Chesapeake Country and Lower Susquehanna heritage areas. So if there's any questions about these management, marketing, and block grants, I'll be happy to tackle them. Otherwise, this is good for deliberation.
Oh, Secretary Flora, you're on mute.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Sandy, thanks, and everyone else that was involved with the review. I believe this should be pretty straightforward by now, and we did get opportunities earlier for any types of comment when those were all put forth. But I'm just going to go ahead and ask for a motion to put forth resolution R700 and see if anyone's ready to make that motion. And I'll talk at once. Pete, thank you. Okay.
I don't know why folks are being so shy today. I will move our 700.
Okay. Is there a second?
This is Nick. I'll second.
Nick, thank you. Second. Okay. Any further or any discussion, questions about this resolution before we call for the vote? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands come up, so I will do reverse order again. Anyone, first of all, we have anyone abstaining. I believe, Sandy, you're abstaining. Okay. Any other abstentions to this vote? Okay. Any opposition? Okay, then the rest of you put your hands up and we'll record the vote. Motion passes. Resolution R700 passes. Thank you all, and special thanks to the heritage areas for your applications and great work putting those together so that we can continue the programs. So we have all of those hands raised, and I just got that recorded. And I think
yes, we can.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll go to R800 next, and with that one, back to you, Andrew, or were you going to go ahead and introduce Kevin?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go straight into introducing Kevin, our wonderful grant review panelist chair, to talk a little bit about the capital and non-capital projects selected for funding.
Yes, hello everyone. It's so good to be with you again. Greetings to MHA, Department of Planning, Secretary Flora, all the heritage area directors on the call. It's good to see everybody again. For FY26, 59 projects are being put forward for funding, totaling $2.815 million. Projects being recommended are actually split pretty evenly, 51% capital and 49% non-capital. Those capital grants have higher ceilings, so 22 capital grants, 37 non-capital grants. The panel worked really hard this year to make sure we were distributing funds across the heritage areas as equitably as we could. Each heritage area is actually getting at least 25% of their total number of applications being funded. Because of a really tight funding landscape, and we've been thinking about that a lot today, the panel decided not to fund more than one application from the same organization this year. The panel also agreed that projects should be fully funded. The only partially funded project was awarded with remaining leftover funds when we hit the funding line. 3 multi-heritage area grants were received this year, and 2 are being put forward for funding. And I just, I'll keep it quick, but I just wanted to take a second to highlight 3 applications that were, particularly lovely this year. So one is a capital application from the Alice Ferguson Foundation. We're enhancing visitor experience at Hard Bargain Farm Environmental Campus. This involves a rehabilitation of an outdoor deck at the property, but as with many of these projects, that simple description belies the fact that this deck is actually a prime site for interpretation, for classroom work, for all kinds of heritage instruction and experience. So the grant supports the construction materials, labor, permitting, all that kind of stuff. And as a special bonus, this is actually, I believe, a new grantee this year due to the recent ALPHA boundary amendment. So really exciting to see that work in effect. We have a non-capital grant also for the Mitchell Art Museum at St. John's College. This is for something called the Liberty Tree Project. This project is actually timed to coincide with the, semi-sesquicentennial, the 250 celebration. One day I will get that down. And it's going to be encouraging people to be thinking about concepts of liberty. It's tied to actually a liberty tree that used to be on the campus there. And then we also have another non-capital grant for $50,000, the County Council of Dorchester County, Navigating Chesapeake Country and Heritage Tourism. Involves the creation of a website, training modules, signage throughout the area. And the second phase, it's actually the second phase of an FY25 MHA project implementing phase 1 priorities for the Chesapeake Country All-American Road Interpretive Plan. So 9 counties on the Eastern Shore working together across 3 heritage areas on that one. So really exciting project. Yes, and then just that's the look at this year. And I will just take 30 more seconds to say thank you to Ariane and Martha and Andrew for their incredible support of this process. My work as chair is made infinitely easier and simpler by the incredible work that they do. So thank you to you 3. You make this so easy every year. I will miss you. It's been a great 6 years, and look me up in 2 years when I'm legally allowed to join again. But thank you all. It's been a pleasure.
Great. Kevin, thank you so much. This is such a volunteer effort, and your expertise and it's been so very much appreciated through all of this, and it's a big lift. I've been involved in other programs doing this thing, so really appreciate your time in this so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have resolution 800 in front of us. You all received the information well in advance. We did not receive any comments. I see Pete's hand up. Is that for a motion, Pete? No, you're down from before. Okay. Would anyone like to make a motion regarding resolution R800?
Can I just ask, Ariane, how do we handle abstentions? If we sent the recusal form in, do we just vote?
It's coming, Nick. Yeah, the next resolution has your recusals. So yeah, just sit tight. Those are coming.
So do we?
Yeah. Thank you for that, Nick.
Yeah.
Because the ones
we have 3, Pete,
listed here.
So I don't vote on this one?
Do not include the 3.
So you can,
So go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, this includes all the grants that didn't have specific recusals from folks. And then over the next 3 slides, we have grants that people did need to recuse themselves for.
Thanks.
Thank you
for reminding us of that. So yes, this resolution does not include the ones where people have identified the need to recuse themselves. We will vote on those each separately, those other three. So Pete.
With that clarification, I will move resolution R800.
Thank you. Okay, motion. Second, anyone out there? Second.
I'll second it. This is Luana.
Luana, thank you, Luana. Okay. I'll call for any abstentions first. Anyone need to raise your hand to abstain? Keeping in mind the recusals are separate. Anyone opposed to the passing of this resolution? Okay, then all hands up in favor of passing this resolution, which includes all recommended grants, with the exception of the three that we need to do separately. Okay, we have all the hands up. Martha, you've got everything?
Yep, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, good to go. Okay, great. Okay, so the next one, and Nick, thank you for making sure we clarified this. So we have 3 more resolutions specific to approval of grants, and each one has to be voted separately because there are members who recuse themselves from specific grants. And so we're going to go through these one by one, and we're going to start with this first one. Andrew, anything we need to say about this before I ask for a motion?
I will just jump in since this is resolution 900A through C. Legal can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we can just do this all as one single vote.
And then the 3 people associated with each of those all recuse themselves.
Yep, that's correct.
Okay, got it. Assuming we have plenty for majority and everything like that, I think we're good. Okay, I'm not seeing anybody that says we can't do that. So, so everybody get that? So it's not just, so it just says Nick is recusing himself. It's actually also, since you're doing all 3, it's also Sandy and Pete on this next vote. Is that correct? Okay,
yep,
so that, because that's wrong on the slide. I just want to correct that. Okay, so Pete, Nick, and Sandy have all identified the need to recuse themselves from these grants that we're covering as one combined resolution separately so that we can record those recusals. And so basically I need a motion from someone other than those 3 for approval of these 3 separately approved grants that are all still part of that program. Is there a motion? Elizabeth, I see your hand up. Are you making the motion? Oh, okay, motion.
Making that motion.
Okay, Melissa's making the motion. Do we have a second?
This is Luana. I'll second it.
Thank you, Luana. Okay, we have a first and second. All, okay, we're going to go back. All abstaining or thus recusing themselves should raise their hands. Pete, Andy, and Nick should have their hands up for the record. Okay, any other abstentions? Okay. Okay, anyone opposed to passing these separate ones? Okay, then all other hands should go up for passing resolution 900A through 900C. And Martha will record that with whoever's left on the call to make sure we're covered. Okay.
Thank you.
Great job, everyone. Big thank you for all of that work. And I just want to remind everyone that when we do this every year, there is a press release that comes out from the governor's office. This package remains confidential. We really like to try to, obviously we're doing a public meeting, so there's only so much we can control that, but we do want to make sure that there is that press release that goes out from the governor's office regarding this great program and rewards for this year. So just wanted to remind everybody of that. Melissa, your hand and Elizabeth's hands are both up. I'll go to Melissa. Okay, you're still up. Okay, great. Okay, we wanted to have a discussion around match and caps today. We wanted to kickstart that discussion with just getting some inputs ahead of time, not necessarily intended to be the end all, but more to just get an idea of what people were thinking out there because this came up. Then I think I don't think we have adequate time because we still want to have the presentation from heritage areas and we're already coming up against 3 o'clock. What I'd like to do, Ariane, is to tee this up, but I think we're going to have to hold discussion. And in addition to that, since we did hear from the heritage areas of being not quite sure how to respond to this and a variety of concerns there. And because this does, the challenge, just so everyone knows, is that if there is to be an adjustment to match in caps, it should be part of the 2027 legislative package. And yes, we would like to do that as a united front. So we may need to do some sort of a, you know, I hate to call a special meeting because it'll be really hard to get people together, but we need some discussion and I'm not sure we can wait all the way to October. So we'll tee it up today. We had hoped to have time today to discuss this, but I know that people may have other commitments and I have to respect that also. So Ariane, why don't you just give us the overview for this? And then I think we're just going to hold it there and then we'll do the heritage area presentation.
Okay. Very quickly. So yes, the survey was sent out to heritage area directors and all authority members. This is really continuing the conversation that started during the strategic planning process. These topics and questions were discussed. Feedback was received. We wanted to get another point of input from everyone to see where everyone was at this point in their thinking process. The two primary questions are, you know, what, if any, changes does the authority want to make to the current match requirements? The current match requirements are that there is a 1-to-1 match on all grants, project grants and heritage area grants. And then what, if any, changes does the authority want to make to the current grant cap amounts and how often should those be assessed? We haven't changed the caps in a very long time. The heritage area management grants and marketing block grants have not been changed in probably over 20 years. And there's a lot of issues around this, and we articulated those in the survey. I won't go into that, but we want to have full discussion and consideration. As Secretary Flores said, going into the 2026 legislative session, and Lucille lifted that up in her remarks as well from the coalition. I will just quickly say that we received 9 out of 18 responses from authority members. I think, you know, given that we're going to be postponing this conversation, we would like to see higher participation from the authority members. So please use this time between now and the next time we discuss it to complete that survey. I think having more input, you know, is just going to make for a better conversation and lead us to, you know, more confident decisions. 10 of the 13 heritage area directors responded. So if the remaining few would like to respond as well, that would be helpful. I don't feel like I should get into the weeds on anything today, Secretary Flora. I think, as you said, we should have this conversation later.
Yeah, and I would add that the survey is just one method. I think this is just like the discussion we had earlier today about 300,000. This deserves a discussion, and so surveys can only give us a sort of one, you know, portal into it. So I also want to discuss the method by which we can sort of have more discussion around this because it does relate to legislative issues also. So we'll table this one for right now and move to the next segment. We do have member announcements or new business that I'll ask for before we go into the heritage area highlights. Any announcements or new business that anyone wants to share? Not seeing any. We're going to go into the heritage area highlights, and I want to apologize to Emily and Lisa if I don't know if you're still able to stay on. I will stay on. I'm sure any of us that can will stay on, but if you would also like to reschedule, unfortunately we're not all the way into October, we would also respect that. So I will start with whichever one of you wants to go first based on time. We have it teed up for Emily. Oh, well, which one we have teed up first? Looks like we have
for
Lisa
me
first.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh my goodness. I'm going to just fly right through this. You can just scroll slides. I wanted to give everybody just a really quick overview because I haven't taken advantage of this for quite a while. And this just, can you hear me? This just shows, our vision statement and our impact numbers. Scroll to the next. And then this is our annual report. We do one every year. We've been doing one since 2020. We have an e-newsletter that goes out. We did a direct mail through Hearst Publications for our African American driving tour, and worked with our public radio station here to produce cultural programming and stories on 10 different rarely told story series. And then created 13 new heritage, African-American heritage interpretive signs throughout the lower shore. Scroll, yep. And so here's one of the signs right there, dedication of Houston Cemetery in Salisbury. And last year we came out with our passport program, which was a partnership between all of the museums and some of the local businesses offering prizes. Go ahead. Here we completed 2 murals last year with a grant for African American Heritage. One was the Frederick Douglass mural in Salisbury. The other was in Crisfield. And we're working on a new mural that will be installed this summer at the Henry Hotel in Ocean City. And you can see a picture. Our staff has grown. We're so excited. Andre Nieto Hane came to us through the AmeriCorps program, and he's a part-time person with us now, and he's absolutely fabulous. So we're thrilled to have him on board. Go ahead. Oh, and we did take advantage and offered the certified interpretive guide training through the National Association of Interpretation, and we did graduate 20 guides through that program. Here's just some of our partnerships with Smith Island United. We got 2 signs on Ewell and Tylerton, and then our Chesapeake Country All-American Road partnership. We're working with the Rural Maryland Council right now on with the Pocomoke Indian Nation. I call it reimagining the Beach to Bay Indian Trail, which was a federally designated national recreation trail back around 1993. And you can see on the next slide, this should be, is kind of where this is going right now. It's going to be about a 28-page guide. And that's right now a cover concept and the map showing the Beach to Bay Indian Trail. Go ahead. This is just a really quick snapshot of some of our mini grant folks from Ocean City to Crisfield. We've distributed a whole variety of projects. Go ahead. And some of our awards that we've received, we're super proud of. We just received the Best New Product Award last year at the Maryland Tourism and Travel Summit for the Frederick Douglass mural. We recently received the award from MHT, the Excellence in Public Programming and Exhibits for our African American Heritage Project. And then I wanted to add, that wasn't on here, and I don't know how I forgot, we also did a documentary called Warriors Beyond the Battlefield about African American vets from this heritage area. And it's a 25-minute documentary, and we were the Audience Choice Award at the Ocean City Film Festival, and we just recently won Best Documentary at the Black Filmmakers Fest in Toronto, and we've been accepted in Houston at the National Black Film Festival. So we are really excited about that project, and we worked with a local company who ended up going so much farther and beyond our original scope. So we got a really nice $89,000 in in-kind contributions from that project. And that's the speed version. We've been really busy. We're really excited. We're going to be working with the DNR on a new water trails project for the coastal bays. That's in the works now. And then finishing this new Native American project. And then we are also going to be conducting a facilitated board retreat in September. And all of these activities fall within our strategic plan and what we need to be accomplishing.
Thank you so much. Wow, you really did do that at warp speed. Thank you so much. Emily, I know that people may have questions and want to come to all of this, but let me see if Emily wants to still present today. If you're teed up to, is it Emily we had teed up, right?
Sure.
Yes, Emily.
Yeah, I don't have any slides, although it's convenient that this slide has the Weinberg Center on it, which is located in the heart of the Civil War heritage area. Just a few notes from the heart of the Civil War that's relevant before our next meeting. The heart of the Civil War, we're going to be hosting an in-person meeting about the US 250th. We hold these convenings pretty regularly, both virtual and in person. And so we have an upcoming one on July 23rd. It's going to be at the Mount Airy Library. We just get our stakeholders together to discuss preparations for the US 250th and creating a program that's going to help equip them to meet the moment and get them together to talk to each other, and so that we're aware of what's going on in all three of our counties. We're expecting our next program is going to focus on raising awareness with the public about the upcoming anniversary and how to get the word out about their programs to residents and visitors alike, kind of what tools are available to them to help boost their messaging about their 250th commemoration efforts. Along with that, we have a US 250th fellow on staff right now, Kitri Post. She has been an amazing addition to our team this year and has really helped us just boost our capacity. It's amazing what an extra person in the office can do. And so she is working with us on that convening, as well as a number of other things, including our new Geo Tour, which is going to release on September 19th. Geocaching is a huge hobby, and one thing we know about geocachers is they love to travel to geocache, and so that's really relevant to us as a heritage tourism program. And so we're putting together a Geo Tour. It's being funded in part by a trip grant from Visit Frederick and a grant from the Rural Maryland Council. We're going to guide geocachers through our three counties, Carroll, Frederick, and Washington counties, to find historic sites, to visit our towns, to explore and learn about the region. I attended Geo Woodstock in Morgantown, West Virginia to help promote our upcoming Geo Tour, and literally hundreds of people who had traveled from across the country who were in Morgantown also traveled several hours to Frederick, Maryland in order to get a particular geocache while they were on the East Coast. And so we know people are really eager to travel and get all of these caches. And so that's opening up on September 19th. Our event has had a huge response of people signing up and saying they'll be at the Westminster Library for that release. And then it's actually followed by the Maryland Block Party on September 20th. And so we are expecting a really large crowd the weekend of the release and a lot of activity on that Geo Tour. We're also going to be launching our new website later this month. So stay tuned for that. We'll be sending out a notice to all of our partners on our email list about that. We're really excited about this new website. And then finally, the Maryland House and Garden Pilgrimage came to Washington County on June 7th, and the Heart of the Civil War Heritage Area organized that experience for people. We saw hundreds of visitors to really unique houses and gardens throughout the Washington County. And we saw that people were coming from all across the region, even all across the country. People really do make a tradition of these pilgrimages. And so we know that it resulted in overnight stays and greater awareness of what's available in Washington County. And so we were really pleased to see that, to offer a place-based experience, to forge these relationships with property owners. We're going to continue to cultivate them. And so based on this success, we are entering into a 3-county rotation, and Frederick County is going to be hosting our next House and Garden Pilgrimage offering. That's going to be June 13th in 2026. So mark your calendars, and then Carroll County is up after that. So thank you so much for the opportunity to just present our update for the Heart of the Civil War. That's just a quick little roundup of latest news that we wanted to share.
Emily, thank you so much. Elizabeth, you have your hand up.
Just Emily's presentation reminded me that during the announcement section, I should have mentioned the Maryland 250 Commission grants that are available. The Inclusive History Grant Program closes on July 25th. So please share that information with your partners, or you may want to apply for one of those grants. And the Maryland 250 Fellows Grant Program is now operating on a rolling deadline basis. But I think the commission really wants to get those funds awarded by the fall. So if you think you could use an MD 250 fellow, just as Emily has, please consider applying.
Great. Thanks for noting that, Elizabeth. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you both. I would just love to be able to go to all the different programs that are always going on all over the state in the heritage areas. They just all look so exciting and fun. And, you know, wish I could be out there with you all even more, but thank you for all that you're doing on the ground. Really appreciate that and sharing it with us. We will look forward to our in-person meeting in October where we can actually be in the same room together, which is always a positive thing, I think. We're all on the same team. It's just some of us have different roles and responsibilities, and we just have to all, I think, remember that as we try to advocate for and support and uplift our heritage across the state of Maryland. So thank you all for staying on a little extra time. We did actually pretty well, considering all we had packed in. I had hoped to have the discussion on the match and the caps, but clearly that's something that I think is just needs more than we could possibly try to squeeze in with the time that we did have to work in. And, you know, time is a factor and I want to be respectful of people's time. So with that, I am going to take a motion to adjourn the meeting. Anyone out there? Elizabeth, thank you. Is there a second? Nick? Okay. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all again so much to the staff and to everyone participating. Look forward to seeing you all in October, and thanks for staying on today so we can get through everything. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.